All right, so let me walk through this little mandala quickly. This is a graphic example of when you can hunt and when you can't hunt over the course of a year, depending on what type of hawk you fly. The point being that it's not just up to you when you get to go hunt. It's up to your hawk. Your hawk has a schedule. The schedule is based on the weight. So the hawk is ideally on weight or at its optimal readiness to hunt once a day, possibly twice a day, but most of us fly once a day. So that sets the tone of the whole day for you. That's the hawk schedule. On top of that, the quarry has a schedule as well. So in my case, starlings, for example, feed twice a day. They're vulnerable to the kestrel that I'm flying about twice a day for a few hours each time. That changes over the course of the summer, over the course of the fall and winter, and in the spring as well. So you watch that, but it's essentially not going to be all day, sun up to sundown. Finally, there's a falconer schedule. So if you work, if you've got kids, if you have any kind of responsibility other than hawking all day, then you're going to be constrained from hawking all day, except maybe on weekends and holidays. Most of the time, there's going to be a big chunk of your day when you can't hunt. This works around the year. And here is a representation of what the year looks like in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is essentially subtropics, US. We've got April to October, which are our warm months. July and August, extremely hot. Cool months, March through November, or November through March, rather. You can hunt essentially year-round, depending on what you're flying. The problem is it gets so hot in the summertime, we don't fly at all then. So the other consideration, obviously, if you're hunting game species, unlike starlings, you're going to have to contend with game seasons. And so those will add a layer of constraint and will add to the things that you need to think about in order to plan your year, plan your quarry, plan your hawk, plan what you do in falconry. The bird's schedule starts with the bird's weight. This is a graphic example of Harry McElroy's 22-hour weight management system. Briefly, this shows two weights. One, the inner circle, is the bird's best response weight that it hits once a day. The outer circle is the weight at which you feed it up to after it's hunting. The blue area is the weight as it drops over 22 hours, putting itself back into hunting weight the next day. This little slide rule graphic here shows how the whole system works regardless what time of day you decide to start to hunt. All right, so the first consideration on scheduling is your hawk's own schedule. When is it going to be ready? In my case, with my kestrel, she's ready at about 8 in the morning. So set that there. And she can go about 2 hours of hunting, after which I need to feed her. So that's essentially the weight window of a kestrel over the course of a day. After that, you've got to think about your quarry. And while some quarry is available pretty much all the time, every day, some, like starlings, are only available during certain parts of the day when they're feeding. So around here, starlings start feeding about 8:30, like they did this morning, and they feed till about 11 or so, and then they kind of take a siesta, and then they really start feeding again after 5. So you could say go to bed maybe at 7. All right, so those are your windows of availability for starlings if you're hunting in Baton Rouge. The next schedule is my schedule, your schedule, falconer schedule. So in my case, I'm not hunting before 8, and I'm definitely not hunting after 7 at my age, although I used to hunt warehouses at night. Don't do much of that anymore. Got some work to do, generally speaking. If I were a normal person and had normal work, I'd have more. But this is about the time of day from about 10:30 to 5, where I take meetings, do work, etc. So that's my availability. So when you add them all up, you got the Kestrel schedule, and you have, in our case, Starling schedule, which this time of year is about like that. And then my schedule, say like that, and that. And then I'm home for dinner a little after 5. That's basically what we've got to work with, which is why you can't get a hawk imagining that the bird's going to be ready, like your dog's ready to go for a walk at any given time. If you want to hunt game with it, you're going to have to think about your schedule, the bird schedule, and the quarry schedule. So the whole scheduling system works also for months of the year, and it's a consideration you've got to make as well as you make on the hours of the day. And so if you go through the process again, you start with your hawk, in my case a kestrel. You've got really a good situation with a kestrel because they can hunt quite a lot of the time. This is essentially when I expect not to be hunting. Now in my case, this is what starling availability looks like year-round. But in your case, if you're up north, then you may not have the same situation. You may lose all of your starlings every winter, and maybe even a little bit more than winter. So that may be more like what you're looking at for starling availability where you are, depending on where you are in the country. Finally, when am I available to hunt? When are you available to hunt? I'm always available to hunt if I can, but, and if you're hunting starlings, for example, then you don't have to worry about seasons, but it really is terrible to be outside, essentially, in that time. Maybe even gonna expand it and say, you know, something like that. So depending on where you live, this map looks different. But for me, if the kestrel molts here, then that's when I'm not flying. For you, if starlings leave all winter long, well, that's going to constrain you. And then maybe, if you live really far up north, no way for you to get out in time to go hunting because you're going to work in the dark and you're coming home in the dark. So that might be, realistically, when you can fly starlings where you are. Other quarries and other hawks, other places of the country, all going to look a little bit different.